Here are three things that I did that helped me restructure my evenings, combat doom scrolling, and ultimately reconnect with myself again. In 2026, my only goal was to reconnect with parts of myself that I have been missing and to bridge the gap between who I used to be and who I currently find myself to be today. And the thing about that kind of growth and change is that it doesn't happen overnight and it's really ugly and it's really messy. And I spent the better part of last year being in kind of a dark and ugly place. And really, I've spent the last decade coming in and out of that kind of state of being. I feel like I have met several versions of myself over the last 10 years. I have a habit of spiraling out, I have a habit of starting over again. And I personally think that that's okay. The three things that I did that I feel like helped me over time last year was the first thing I did is I started scheduling my screen time. I set up timers and modes on my phone to limit my access to doom scrolling apps or just like any sort of app. I found myself really addicted to looking at a screen. I was starting to get into playing video games again, and I would schedule playing my video games for times that I had a hard out, like before I went to work. So I would play for an hour before I had to start getting ready to go to work because I had to stop. I had to go to work. Second thing I did was push myself to pick up non screen activities. I did a lot of reading. I went back to embroidering again for a while. I was sewing again for a while, things that I really kind of missed connecting with. And on days that it was like kind of hard to do those things, I'd color again. Um, Anything that would get me into my body and out of my head. And bottom line, no blue light, no screens. And then the third thing I did was I cut back on drinking and alcohol and other forms of just like quick endorphin boosts and dopamine boosts. And it definitely had its challenges. It was not necessarily easy to stay in the swing of those things. I didn't just overnight decide to start doing these things and then immediately see some results. I would override those timers and programs on my phone that limited my access to those apps all the time. And I found that if I just forgave myself and just leaned into it a little bit that day, I would still over the week, more often than not be on my phone as often. And as I kept going, eventually it became easier and easier to stick to sort of those schedules or to just sort of avoid the phone altogether. The more I pulled away from my phone, the more I really saw how addicted I was. When I would put it down, I would itch to pick it back up again. Didn't matter what was on it, didn't matter what I was scrolling through. Because I was so addicted to the quick through, my attention span and focus was just shot. So trying to stick to books and read them, if it wasn't something that was like super intriguing to me, sometimes it was really often hard to finish. And prior to this, I would not argue that I had a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I just didn't know what to do with myself in the discomfort of my own feelings. Last year was kind of weird. I had just really started to get into the swing of a career that I really love. I work in film, and film opportunities are kind of drying up right now. Ask anyone who works anywhere in the country in film, it's a little sparse. And I didn't know what to do with myself not getting to do that job after I worked so hard to get there and I felt like I had just started. So I would spend my evenings just going through doom scrolling apps, and one glass of wine would turn into two glasses of wine, would turn into way more glasses of wine that I should have in order to sleep well and will function like at 100% the next day. So as I started to build up the habits of like avoiding my phone and doing other things like reading, I would use like a glass of wine as part of the reward for reading. I would wait until I was ready to sit down and go to bed and have my glass of wine while I was reading. And then eventually that reward wasn't necessary anymore. Just the reward of sitting down and reading before I would go to bed. It was easier for me to focus on a story, and I was finding more and more interesting books. I also started getting little dopamine hits for just like the achievements of reading. I've been using my Kindle a lot, and anyone who uses a Kindle knows there's the Kindle challenges. I really wanted to hit those goals. That made it so much more fun and easier to read every single day. I want to say I'm currently, as of filming this, I'm on a 65-day streak, 66. And I hit every single challenge in the last quarter challenge of the Kindle challenge last year. And anyone who's ever made any kind of progress with any kind of goal that's like genuinely challenging to them is going to tell you that progress is not linear. It is not an up. It's an uphill slope, but the line does not go straight. If I would mess up, I would just start over. If I found myself being in a place where I was neglecting myself or my mental health, or I wasn't effectively doing these habits that I was trying to build, I would just start over. And the big thing for me about building habits is I like to try and just focus on one habit at a time. For the next 3 days, I'm just going to make sure that I read. Or for the next 3 days, I'm going to make sure that I am just like sticking to not overriding the timers and programs on my phone if I don't have to. And then I would slowly add from there. And now that time has gone by, I am genuinely seeing results. And I'm glad that I stuck with trying to build these specific habits for myself. I am noticing that I don't feel the desire to pick up my phone as often. I genuinely feel calmer throughout the day. My tolerance for discomfort has expanded, which is like kind of mind blowing. And I think it's because I found activities to do while I sat in the discomfort of my own feelings. And that gave me the space to sort through them. I, I mean, for one, I read over just about 40 books last year. Um, Half of those I listened to uh, because I was door dashing for half the year. And so I was listening to a lot of audiobooks, but I consumed a lot more. I feel myself being more focused. I feel myself, it's easier for me to be creative and connect with that creative side of myself. Finding motivation, even for things that I really just like don't want to do, that I struggled to stay on top of before, like menial chores. It's just less of an effort to fight myself to do them or to think about doing them. It's easier just to stay on top of some of those things. And I feel like the biggest thing that has had the strongest, longest lasting effect is that my sleep has gotten better. I fall asleep a little bit easier. I stay asleep a little bit better. And I think a lot of it's just that I'm not consuming as much blue light. And I think that's good for my brain and my body. But also, all of the other things about feeling relaxed and accomplished, I think are making a really big difference. But I will tell you that the two pieces of advice that I do think are genuine and can be helpful to just about anybody is when you are in the thick of it, whether you're starting over or you're trying to build habits and it's not working, or you somehow backslid in one way or another, focus on one thing at a time and ask yourself, what can I do right now? Just simplifying things down for myself really made things easier. Tell me if it works for you. And tell me what's going on in your world. Tell me what you do to help yourself feel more like yourself. What have you done that has helped you feel like you're building habits? How have you hacked your life and simplified it to ground yourself again? If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Subscribe if you're enjoying the journey. No pressure, but I really appreciate you guys tuning into my channel.